Hey friends, welcome back to Made Strong. This is a place where we talk about what it actually looks like to build strength in real life, physically, mentally, emotionally, not when it's easy, but when it's hard. Because the truth is, strength is not something that we're given, it's something that we build. One decision, one habit, one moment at a time. And today's conversation is a powerful example of that. Today, I am sitting down with my friend Katie, also known as Katie's Race to Breathe. Katie was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis as a child, and that is a condition that affects the lungs and requires daily treatments just to maintain lung function. But instead of letting that define her, she has built a life around discipline, movement, and purpose. She became a competitive runner, a strength coach, and someone who truly understands what it means to push through discomfort. She has now completed her 5th marathon and is on a mission to help others, especially those living with chronic illness, to find their identity beyond their diagnosis. One of the things I respect most about Katie is her perspective. While she is walking through something she would have never chosen, she carries an awareness that others are facing even greater challenges. And that mindset shapes how she shows up every day. Katie, welcome to the Made Strong podcast. And I want to start here. You just completed your 5th marathon, and I want you to think about when you crossed that finish line, what did that moment mean to you, not just as an athlete, but as someone who has spent her entire life learning how to breathe well?
First, when I finished that marathon, I was like, thank God it's over. It was one of the hardest marathons I've done thus far. One of the most beautiful marathons I've done. It was in Newport, Rhode Island. You saw the mansions and the cliffs. It was beautiful, but the back half was just hills. And I just wasn't prepared for that. And each marathon that I've run so far has taught me a new lesson. And I think this marathon specifically has taught me that I'm way stronger than I realized. The race did not go to plan, and that happens with races, that happens with life. And it's just, how do you come back and change the plan mid-race or mid-life? And this race became just a mission to finish, and I didn't know if I was going to run a personal best. I didn't know what was going to happen in it. And I just stayed strong mentally. I said, let's just get to that next cone. Let's get to that next pole, whatever it was to get me to that finish. And what made me realize I'm way stronger than I thought I ever was, I ran a personal best by almost 3 minutes. I ran 3 hours and 19 minutes. I qualified for the Boston Marathon. I came in 3rd in my age group and 15th overall for women. So pretty good day for a day that I didn't feel good.
Wow.
And it just makes me realize I'm way faster than I probably showed on that day. And so it makes me very excited for my future races.
That is incredible, because you said it didn't go to plan, and yet you still
No.
accomplished all of these achievements
Yeah.
at the end.
Yeah.
That's so incredible. When did you first start running?
I started running around 5, 6 years old with my dad. I also played soccer. I was horrible at soccer. I don't think I made a goal in the 3 to 5 years that I played it, but I love running up and down the field. And my dad, I think, kind of could see that I really liked running. So he would take me around our community. We did a few 5Ks, like charity 5Ks together. And there was just something that just lit me on fire when I go out on these runs. So I've been running since 6 years old or so. And then I ran modified track and cross country, high school, and into college, and now marathons.
Wow. I remember I grew up where I was like a kid who could still play multiple sports year round. I didn't have to commit to one like kids do today a lot. But I remember making that decision kind of 7th grade that soccer was going to be my sport. And I started mentally taking that more serious. When do you feel like you made running mentally, that's my sport, and you started taking it a little more serious?
Probably I got invited by a friend who was going to join the cross country team. And she's, you have to join. I was in 8th grade at the time. So you could start playing school sports in 7th grade. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And I told my mom's, you're going to have to run a lot. And I was like, yeah, but I run 5Ks with dad. I want to give it a try. And little did we know that this was just going to build this fire inside of me. For a long time since my diagnosis, I hated being seen as the sick girl. And when friends and family would come over, I never wanted them to see me doing my treatments, which entailed putting a vest on that would shake my lungs, or these nebulizer treatments, and they would be like an hour plus long. And I just hated it. I'm just so embarrassed by it. But I think I didn't fully understand what CF was. So when I joined the cross country team, didn't realize I had a knack for running. that it just made me feel everyone who was watching didn't see the CF girl. They saw this runner who is breaking records, who is fast, who is beating the field by 400 meters. My first race, I came out of the woods and my mom was there cheering for me, and she called my dad. It was like, she's winning the race. She's winning by so much. And he was like, all right, Jackie. Didn't think anything of it. And then he did show up to one of my races, like, shit, okay. So I think like seeing their perspective in it, they were probably just so happy that I signed up for a sport and I really enjoyed it, not thinking I was actually going to have a talent for it. And it helped build this confidence in me. My mom said at that time that my walk changed. She said I was always this timid girl who was scared of her own shadow, and now I became this other person.
Katie and I got to meet a little bit earlier, and so I got to hear a little more of her story, and we chatted about what we might talk about today, but I'm also going to play off some of the things you're saying, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I love that you were doing these things. Can you tell the audience a little bit about when did you realize you had cystic fibrosis? When did you get that diagnosis, and how did it show up for you?
So leading up to my diagnosis, I was having more of the GI side of cystic fibrosis that it's not talked a lot about. So people with CF, the main thing, primary issue is our lungs create a lot of mucus because our cells don't work correctly. So we get this like cement-like mucus in our lungs, makes it difficult to breathe, attracts bacteria, which causes infection, and people with end-stage CF will need a lung transplant to survive. On the other side, there's also GI issues. So before I eat anything, I have to take a pancreatic enzyme to break down fats. Leading up to my diagnosis, I was having a lot of diarrhea. And so that's where this embarrassment, I think, came from my disease, not understanding it. So my parents were taking me to all these specialists because we have a lot of GI issues in my family. They thought it was Crohn's, lactose intolerant, and everything was coming back normal. It wasn't until I got a sweat test done that determined that I had cystic fibrosis.
How old were you?
6. I was 6 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was a little bit later of a diagnosis. Now kids most of the time are diagnosed at birth.
Got it. Okay. And then, so I grew up, my walk isn't parallel with Katie, but I grew up with a lot of upper respiratory illnesses and thought it was the genetic card I had been dealt. Also, lung GI connection. I had to do the inhalers whenever I would play sports because I had exercise-induced asthma as well. And the funny thing is, fast forward, have you ever considered, because Katie was saying how when she was having to do these modalities, like the vibration for her lungs to optimize her, she was afraid that would make her look a certain way around her peers. Maybe she was a little embarrassed by it. I learned, gosh, just a couple of years ago, the entire Liverpool team uses an asthma inhaler as a performance enhancement. They all have a diagnosis of asthma, so they can take this albuterol steroid, open up their lungs so they can perform better. So there is something to some of these things that we were doing. I think it's interesting we've come to a place in 2026 when we're recording this that people are looking for ways to optimize. And so when you were talking about the vibration, I was like, ooh, maybe we should all do that to optimize. People are using those vibration plates now.
True. Oh my gosh, yes. And then I remember I went to a chiropractor with my dad when I was young because there was like the vibrating tool,
Like the massage gun.
The massage gun, and they wanted to use it on my chest, and I was like, no, I was like too nervous, but I have one. I was like, yeah, literally, that helps. It's like on the go instead of carrying a big vest with me.
We've come a long way. So maybe get some of those tools if you guys want to, warm up all of those muscles. Let's transition a little bit because I've talked about with my walk, I really didn't know life any other way. And being 6 years old, having this, you really didn't know life any other way also. And that we really embrace, because I heard it in your 5th marathon here, that things weren't going as planned and you were able to pivot mentally and then set other goals in the moment as you were going. Can you share, we had said, gosh, when we were talking about our discomfort tolerance and that we see a direct correlation to us being able to handle discomfort and then having positive outcomes in our life, even outside of sport, and then our peers. And even I can see it in my kids and their generation. I see today that our culture as a whole gets really addicted to their feelings and they don't feel like doing things. And I would love for you to speak into those people to help them embrace their discomfort.
Yep. Having cystic fibrosis, I've experienced so much discomfort, from really tight lungs to these stabbing pains at times. And I think it kind of tells you that you're alive when these things happen, and you will be able to get over the hump and figure it out and figure out why you're having these pains. And I think the marathon has really helped me with this. When I'm like deep in the pain cave, I think it pushes me to get to that finish line, because if you quit, the discomfort goes away, but ultimately you just quit. You've spent months training for this race, whatever race it may be. Maybe it's even you had a speaking opportunity right before you decide not to do it. It was like, what was the point of all this great stuff that you had done leading up to it? And the marathon for me, it hurts. And no matter what, if you're a professional or not, the marathon gets very painful. But to be able to finish, like the joy that overcomes me no matter what marathon I've finished. Now, maybe it's the best marathon, the hardest one. I walked most of it, whatever it is, it's so thankful to finish it. And I think that discomfort makes you realize that you're alive. And I think it's something to chase. It's only going to make you better as a person if you're able to go over these discomfort humps in your life. It's just what moves you forward. It makes us human.
Absolutely. Have you seen your peers? Can you share a little bit about just the world that's around you and where sometimes you might see something that's a disconnect for you where you're just like, what do you mean? Like, why are you stopping?
Yeah.
Or why are you letting this, and I'm pointing to my head, why are
One of
you letting
the
this stop you?
one of the things I've started noticing, so in my experience with cystic fibrosis, I'm part of a lot of Facebook groups. And one of the big red flags I keep seeing in these, and I don't really like to participate in them much, is it's not necessarily the people who have the disease, it's who they're around who comment stuff. We'll have a lot of like young parents who have just had a child with CF, and they will comment something like needing advice. You have older people like me and other 31, 60 years old who have CF, and they'll comment and they're like, no, my child can't do that. I am a lived experience. So one thing I think I've noticed as I've gone through this life is like people's limitations, I think, are the biggest things that are, it's their fears that they're putting on others. And then you begin to believe it. And it's like a scary thing. And I think that's why having a passion or an identity beyond what other people tell you is so important. So people with chronic illnesses, from day one, they have this limitation on them. I have cystic fibrosis. I can't run. I can't do this. And I just don't think that's true. Maybe you're not going to be a runner, but maybe you're a pianist. Maybe you're an artist. Whatever it might be, find that passion beyond your limitations that someone has set for you or what you now believe in yourself.
Yeah, I think by all means, we need traditional medicine. And though I think it's really important for us to be advocates above and beyond, like these medical professionals, they are worked very hard and long hours, and they have a limited amount of time outside of a lot of times patient care. So there's always paradigms that are like evolving and shifting. And I have also witnessed people who use a diagnosis kind of as their identity and as a death nail. They give that diagnosis, they give their power away to that diagnosis, then they become a victim. I was listening to some doctors who created a company called Wild Health MD, and they're more functional medicine. And they were both two ER docs who got really frustrated because people had a lot of lifestyle related things that could be prevented. And traditional medicine doesn't empower people to a lot of those lifestyle changes. And so they pivoted to functional medicine. But what they said was they were both eating a similar lifestyle. I think they were both eating keto at the time. They worked out the same, they worked the same. One thrived with it, one didn't. And they went back to these genetics tests. And long story short, one, genetics just really don't work with keto. He does better with a more plant-based diet. And so we're not all one size fits all. And what they said is a lot of research will show you X amount of percentage of people who have, this gentleman had genetic high blood pressure. So a lot of studies come back that people who have genetically related high blood pressure do well with keto diet again. But when he did his genetics, he saw he did better plant-based. Now, but they said, what you have to realize is when they say that, this is a made up number, but let's say 67% of people who have genetic related high blood pressure do great with keto. That also means that there's another percentage who didn't. And we often don't think about people fitting into the 30 other something percentage that didn't study well on keto. So all that to say, your diagnosis is, why wouldn't Katie or why wouldn't I be in the top 10%, 1%, 20% who are able to thrive and survive. And I just want to have you think, and as our audience, no matter what it is that you're walking through, while a large majority of people may go a negative route, why can't you be the one that goes a positive route? And I do think so much of it is the decision you make.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. I started saying in my head, like, why can't I? Like, why can't I run this time in the marathon? Why can't I make it in this niche? Whatever was on my mind those days. And even I told my sister, she's trying to get into fashion, which is such a hard area to go into. But I'm like, why can't you? It's so true. You work hard, you do what you need to do, and you keep moving forward. There's going to be times where you're going to want to quit, but why can't you? There's someone out there who made it in the fashion world, who made it as a professional runner, whatever it might have been. There was a time where they wasn't sure they were going to be able to do it, but they kept going after it because why can't they? So why can't us? I really love that.
100%. And I love Katie's fast. And I feel like for me, my mindset has always been like, I'm going to outlast you. I'm not somebody who's going to verbally say that to somebody out loud, but I'm thinking in my head, I'm going to outlast you. In my company, it took me 10 years to reach a leadership level. That was a long time. And I have other goals. And again, some people may have reached that pinnacle faster than me. I'm just going to be here longer than you. And similarly, why can't I, as you were running, even if you wouldn't have hit whatever it was that you shifted to and said, why can't I hit this? I think you would have gotten a lot closer to that because of that mindset than if you wouldn't have had that mindset, right? Even if you would have fallen a little bit short, you would have been better than you would have had been had you not thought that. Yeah, power of our thoughts. That's incredible. As a runner, we may have some runners listening. So let's talk about, have you faced any injuries and setbacks beyond your cystic fibrosis? And what did those seasons teach you about mental strength?
So I was training. I qualified for the Boston Marathon for the first time, and I had been training, and I was feeling so good leading up to it. I was running very fast. There was one thing I wasn't working on, which was my mental health at the time. My anxiety was through the roof. I was having some GI issues. Actually, to go back, my mom passed away from colon cancer. I was having this crazy fear about cancer. And I was working for a company at the time that was creating a product for cancer patients. So I was just overwhelmed with it. And I wasn't taking care of myself there. And I think it broke me down. I don't feel like my nutrition was not good. I was not sleeping. And I ended up getting runner's knee and IT band syndrome about a month before the marathon. And I almost to this day feel like that was mentally harder on me than my CF when I would get sick. Because at least when I got sick, I could see the end goal. I was like, oh, we're going to get better. I'm going to have antibiotics. I can still run. Maybe I just need to run a little easier. This was a stop. I couldn't run. I couldn't bike. Walking even felt uncomfortable. I saw all these different doctors, and everyone gave me a different diagnosis or a different reason why it happened. All different types of PTs and other doctors. It was very frustrating because I wasn't getting the answers. I ended up having to take a step back and went and got a strength coach. And she has helped me become the strongest version of myself. I had to start back from the basics and rebuild myself to where I am now. So it's been a journey, and I think the dips in your journey are what make the destination so beautiful in the end. So I'm glad to be back marathoning and running other races.
Yeah, I think people don't realize how toxic emotional stress is. You know, if you ate bad, you know, if you're not sleeping well, there's almost a metric to that. But emotional stress, oh, I almost think it 10 times is worse.
Yes.
Recovery is so important. Those things that you can control when you're walking through something heavy emotionally, I think it's important to double down on those. And you're on the other side of it. But when you were in the thick of it, did you feel like you were ever going to get out?
I didn't know. It was I had never been injured like that before. It was always my CF. I feel like my CF always limited me from even competing at the highest level to get injured almost. That's how I looked at it. It was like every time I was really starting to peak in my training, I would get sick. I was never really working my muscles to their full potential to get injured, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But during that time, I had depression. I felt like a shell of myself during it. I had to get a therapist. I was on medication for the first time ever. I've lost my mom and I have cystic fibrosis, and I've never needed depression meds like then. It just running is my outlet. It's where I get rid of my anxiety. It's
Yeah.
just where I feel like I'm moving forward, and each stride, I feel like I'm running away from my CF and I'm stronger than it. And this was the first time where it was just like I couldn't do any of it.
I'm so proud of you because you didn't just give up, that you
Mhm.
realized there were other tools and resources. And I, again, kind of go back to there's a time and a place for traditional medicine. And I think therapy is hugely beneficial. So I'm so glad that you did that. And maybe you had a support circle also pointing you in that direction. I don't know if we've talked about that, but do you feel like you were surrounded by people who were encouraging you or?
Yes, especially my sister, because she had gone through, she graduated with a psychology major,
Okay.
and she could see that I just wasn't myself and she really needed to see a therapist. She was working with a therapist. She was also on medication for her mental health. And so she was the one who really pushed me towards seeing someone and talking. I had never talked to anybody. And
Yeah.
I was always like, no, I don't need a therapist. I'm fine. I don't want to talk about my feelings. But now I've been working with a therapist for over 3 years, and I think it's great.
Yeah. Absolutely. Plus, there's sports psychologists that
Mhm.
actually even work on that, like, again, optimizing your performance.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So let's pivot a little bit to your running. You are successful and above and beyond a diagnosis. So, what are some of the non negotiables in your routine that help you to stay strong physically and mentally?
I know one of the most important thing is I look at my treatment and my medication as part of my training. I don't use it as, oh, this is where I'm sick, because I feel like that's just gonna make me not want to do my treatments. Because sometimes, like when I'm sick, they take a while to do, and then you're stuck on the couch. They're just part of the training. They're just like a strength training, just going out for a run, doing your mobility. And I also have to do a nebulizer and the vest and extra stuff to make sure I'm healthy. I now see how important consistency is. I'm on a new medication called Trikafta that has literally changed my life. Before Trikafta, it was really hard to stay consistent in my running. It was like ups and downs all the time. Every time I felt like I was starting like peak or get really good in my running, I would get sick. So it's hard to stay consistent. And since starting Trikafta back in 2019, I am now able to do full on training cycles and not get sick. I can't tell you the last time I got sick, knock on wood. It's been amazing. And consistency is key for everyone. If you want to run a marathon, if you want to learn how to do an instrument, whatever it is, building those blocks and learning and getting better with your craft is so important. And then mentally, one of the most important things I've learned is not to listen to others. I feel like a lot of people over my years have tried to put limitations on me, and it's all based off how they feel inside. I've had people say, "I don't envy you," at a time where I felt like I was running so fast because all they saw was CF. I've had people tell me, "Oh, you're not gonna make it to the Olympics." Maybe I'm not gonna make it to the Olympics, but that's not for you to decide. And I've had even family members tell me, "Oh, one day you're gonna have to run with an oxygen tank." And I was like, "I'm not gonna do that." I was like, "Yeah, I can't don't know where my CF is gonna take me. It's a progressive disease. It gets worse over time." But it was like people love to just determine your future, even though that's not how you feel yourself. And I think it's so important to believe you, feel it in your heart, and that's what paves your path. One of the things my mom said before she passed away, which has stuck with me, was don't let anybody tell you how to live your life. And that's how I live my life.
Do you do any kind of affirmations
Not
where it's
really.
like
I do manifesting. I've started doing that, trying to just think, well,
visualize?
I always have visualized races
Yeah.
when I was younger, and now I do it with a lot of different things, or just really feeling that feeling. It hasn't happened yet, but I know it's happened kind of thing. Yeah.
That's
So
magic.
it's magic, yeah.
Yeah, your brain doesn't know the difference between you being at home in a safe place visualizing it and
Mhm.
having the emotion or you physically actually living it out. So it's really cool when you can create those neural pathways because then your brain will find ways to make that happen. So that's really cool. I love that. For someone who is living with a chronic illness, what is the first habit you would encourage them to start with?
I think trying to find that thing inside you that lights you up. And I think everyone has it. I can't give you a tip of how to find it. I think you know deep down. I think it's the one thing that you always come back to. I bring up my sister again. She's always loved fashion from such a young age.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy she's going back to school for fashion. And I think it's the same thing for me. There was a time I stopped running because I was getting sick a lot. I was burnt out from college running. but I always found myself getting back into it. Either I was coaching track Division 1 at Boston University, coaching at Tufts University, opened my own coaching side business called Mission Breathe Again. There's always a path that kind of takes you there. And now I'm back running my marathons, and it's just made me so happy that I've gotten back to where I am. And my hope is that other people with chronic illnesses can see something in them beyond their disease, something that makes you feel like a feather. It just makes you feel lightweight, just happy, and the world around you, all the noise has gone quiet and you're just home.
I love that. And so you mentioned it, so we're going to go there. You created Breathe Again to help others find their identity beyond their disease. Share with us a little bit about what is that mission and why is that so important to you?
I started creating this coaching business around COVID. I wanted to help other people with chronic illness. It's more than just fundraising for the CF Foundation. I wanted a hands-on approach where I could help someone and see them progress beyond their disease through running. And it's definitely been tough getting people with chronic illnesses to want to run, although I feel like there's been a shift in people running. So many people with cystic fibrosis are now running marathons, which is so awesome to see.
Yeah.
It makes me so excited. I have since starting with the coaching, still do coaching, but I'm now taking Mission Breathe Again into a more different direction. And I'm hoping just to share my story like I am here with you all today. I see Mission Breathe Again was started as a coaching for running, but Mission Breathe Again also sounds like something that helps you breathe again, something that gives you a passion more than your disease. The title has changed in a way. My hope is to motivate others to find their thing in life that gives them the identity beyond their disease.
Awesome. If there's somebody listening today, and we touched on it, but let's kind of expand a little bit. If they feel limited by their diagnosis, what's something you just want them to hear for today, to make it through today?
Small steps every day. Just if I was going to coach somebody in running, I'm not going to have you run a marathon tomorrow. I'm going to have you go out for a walk. Small steps get you farther than one large leap that you can't sustain. And that's with anything. If that's just getting up in the morning and brushing your teeth, that's great. I think it's small steps build bigger habits for the long run.
Absolutely. As we're getting ready to wrap up, you've completed your 5th marathon. We would love to know, what is your next goal?
This summer, I plan to run some 5K and 10Ks, get my speed up, some shorter races, and then looking towards a potential marathon in November. And since I've qualified for Boston, I might as well do that next April in 2027.
We will be cheering you on. That was powerful. I know that people are going to be able to take a lot of what you shared today, your perspective and your heart. I would love to let them know, where can people find you if they want to get in contact with you? Maybe they want to coach with you, but if they want to know more about your mission. Yeah. Where can they find you?
So my website is missionbreatheagain.com if you're interested in coaching for running, or I also have a whole page if you're interested in having me speak at something or a podcast, which I'm really trying to pursue and tell my story. And other than that, I have my Instagram that I'm very active on. It's called Katie's Race to Breathe. Same thing on TikTok.
Perfect. And I'll put it in the show notes as well. Thank you guys. If this episode encouraged you, we're going to ask you to share it with someone who needs it. Go check her out, please. We would love for you to give her some love on her socials. And thank you for being here and choosing to grow and for continuing to build a life that is strong from the inside out. We will see you guys next time on Made Strong.
Thank you.